cold swept the nave, so sharp it burned their lungs. Then, from somewhere high above, a sound began. It rolled through the rafters, deep and resonant, a church bell impossibly clear. Eleanor's head snapped upward. The belfry was empty. She had seen it from outside. No bell had hung there in centuries. Yet the sound shook the very stones. The air grew heavier, pressing down on them. Shadows bled from the corners of the church, pooling like ink across the floor. From the confessional, the curtain stirred again, slowly, as though beckoning. Eleanor's pulse hammered. She clutched James's arm. "Don't go near it." But James, shaking, forced a laugh. "We're not playing along with this." The final toll crashed through the nave like a hammer. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. And then came the whisper, not faint this time, not hidden, but strong, resonant, as if spoken by a man standing right behind them. "Enter and confess." The confessional curtain yawned wider, the dark inside stretching unnaturally deep. As though it were no longer a box, but a tunnel of endless night. James took a step back, his bravado gone. "I'm not sitting in there, no chance." But even as he said it, the three of them felt it, a pull, not physical, but inside their chests, as if unseen hands were tugging at the strings of their hearts, urging them toward the booth. And faintly, beneath the whisper of prayer, came another sound, the creak of a rope swaying above their heads. Eleanor forced her eyes upward, and there, dangling from the blackened beams of the roof, was the outline of a noose. Empty one moment, occupied the next, as a pale shape twitched at the end of it. A priest's robe swayed in the draftless air, the head lolling at a broken angle. Father Gabriel Ward was watching them, and his voice filled the church, colder than the grave. "Kneel or hang." The silence that followed Father Ward's words was suffocating. Only the groan of the old rafters and the faint swing of the phantom rope broke it. Eleanor could barely move. Her body screamed to flee, but the chain door behind them had not budged since it slammed shut. They were trapped. Daniel stepped forward. His crucifix glinted in the dim light. "It's me he wants, a priest in training, a soul meant to be pure." That's what he's mocking. "Don't be stupid," Eleanor snapped. "If you go in there, you might not come back out." The confessional curtain stirred again, wider this time, as though a hand from inside had pulled it back. Shadows bled outward from it, creeping across the floor like black veins. Then the whisper came again, closer, clearer, dripping with authority. "Enter, confess, kneel and be bound." Eleanor felt her breath quicken. The darkness in the booth wasn't just absence of light. It was depth, endless depth. Like looking into a pit with no bottom. James cursed under his breath. "Fine, I'll do it. I'll show you both it's empty. Just some stupid, rotten box." Before Eleanor or Daniel could stop him, James strode forward. His boots echoed against the stones. He yanked the curtain fully aside and ducked into the booth, sitting heavily on the small wooden bench inside. The curtain fell shut behind him. At once, the church shifted. The air thickened, humming with static. Eleanor's ears rang, as if she had pressed against a beehive. Then softly the low rasp of two voices. One was James's, hesitant, unsure. The other, deeper, wet, broken like a throat that had snapped under weight, was Father Ward's. "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." James's voice quavered, trying to keep steady. "I don't even believe in this rubbish. My sin is mocking what others fear." A pause. Then the other voice, closer, so close it seemed to seep from the wood itself. "Your sin is pride. Your penance is death." James screamed, a raw, unrestrained sound that cut off as quickly as it began. The confessional shuddered violently. The walls of the booth bulged, as if something inside pressed outward, struggling to escape. Eleanor and Daniel rushed forward, wrenching the curtain aside. The booth was empty. Only James's cigarette lighter lay on the bench, still warm. His coat hung limp on the hook, swaying as if freshly placed there. But James himself was gone. "Dear God," Daniel whispered, clutching his crucifix until his knuckles whitened. It took him, body and soul. Eleanor staggered back, heart racing. Her mind screamed for reason, for explanation, but none came. The booth's shadow seemed deeper now, as though James had been swallowed whole. The rope creaked again above them. Eleanor forced her gaze upward and choked. The noose now held two figures, Father Ward's twisted body, and beside him, James Miller, his face pale, his eyes wide and unseeing, dangling in silence. His mouth opened, and in a voice that was not his own, he whispered, "Next." Eleanor's scream caught in her throat, strangled into silence. James's body swayed beside Father Ward's from the rafters, his lifeless eyes staring down at her with the same unyielding command. "Confess." Daniel dragged her away from the sight, his own face ashen. "Don't look at him. Don't give it power." But the church was already changing. The walls shivered, mortar cracking like brittle bones. Candles flickered to life along the altar rail, though no hand touched them, their flames casting sickly shadows that moved against the light. And then the voices began. Not whispers this time, but wails, dozens of them. Men, women, children, their cries overlapping in agony. The sound reverberated from the stones, as if the walls themselves remembered the suffering. Figures flickered into being among the pews, shadowy, translucent shapes of villagers in rags, their faces twisted with fear. Some pounded at the bolted doors, others clawed at the windows. Mothers clutched infants to their breasts, their mouths open in silent screams. "The plague," Daniel whispered. "This is what happened the night he sealed them out." Eleanor turned. At the far end of the aisle, near the confessional, another figure emerged. Solid, clear, more than shadow. A priest in dark robes, his face pale, his eyes hollow pits. Father Ward. He strode forward, his voice rising above the cries. "You are unclean. You are damned. The house of God shall not be defiled by your sickness." The villagers' wails grew frantic. Some collapsed where they stood, convulsing as though the plague still ravaged their bodies. Others screamed Ward's name, spitting curses as they beat their fists bloody against the door. Daniel fell to his knees, horrified. He locked them out, left them to die. Ward's spectral head snapped toward him, lips curling. "I saved myself. I saved his house." Their lives were the offering he required. Eleanor shook her head violently. "No, you damned them." Ward's gaze fixed on her now, and the temperature plummeted. Frost spread across the altar, freezing the blood into dark glass. The priest raised his arms, and the vision shifted. The villagers were gone. The church filled instead with the angry roar of a mob. Torches, pitchforks. Dozens of shadows surged forward, dragging Father Ward from the altar. His screams tore through the nave as they looped the bell rope around his neck. Eleanor and Daniel were forced to watch as his body dropped. A crack of bone echoing louder than thunder. The ghostly mob faded, leaving only Ward's twisted form dangling from the beam, his eyes burning with unholy fire. "I was betrayed," he hissed, his voice shaking the pews. "Hung in the house I built, spat upon by those I saved. And so I claimed it, every stone, every soul, every drop of blood spilled within its walls. This church is mine, and all who enter are mine." The noose creaked, the vision dissolved. Eleanor staggered back, her chest heaving, tears stinging her eyes. She could still hear the villagers' cries ringing in her ears. Daniel clutched her arm, his voice hoarse. "We can't reason with him. He doesn't want forgiveness. He wants confession," Eleanor whispered. "Submission. He wants us to kneel." Ward's hollow laugh rolled through the church like thunder. The confessional curtain yawned open once more, the darkness inside deeper than before, a mouth waiting to swallow. From above, James's swaying body twitched. His lips cracked open, blood dribbling down his chin, and in a voice that was two voices at once, his and Ward's, he rasped, "It is time for the final mass." The bell tolled again. Not 12 times now, but endlessly, relentless, shuddering through the stones, until the very air seemed to buckle under its weight. Candles ignited across the nave in unison, their flames unnaturally tall, casting shadows that twisted and writhed like living things. The pews straightened themselves, splintered wood knitting back together, as though the church was preparing itself for worship after centuries of ruin. Eleanor and Daniel stood frozen as the organ at the far end groaned to life. Its pipes, long broken, shrieked out a guttural hymn, a dirge that made Eleanor's teeth ache. And then he came, Father Gabriel Ward, no longer a half-seen shadow or flickering vision, but solid, whole, yet corrupted beyond humanity. His robes hung in tatters, soaked in blood that never dried. His head lolled at that impossible angle, neck broken, but his eyes burned with a terrible clarity. He stepped onto the altar, raising his skeletal hands. "My flock returns." The nave filled at once. The pews were no longer empty. Every bench was occupied by pale, hollow-eyed figures. The villagers of Ravensdale, their faces twisted with agony, their bodies half rotted from plague, sat in rigid silence, staring at the altar. Their mouths opened as one, releasing a low, droning chant. "Confess, confess, confess." Daniel stumbled back, clutching his crucifix so tightly it cut into his palm. This is his mass, a service of the damned. Ward's gaze locked on him, his lips peeled into a grotesque parody of a smile. "And you, little priest, will serve as my deacon." The noose above groaned. James's corpse dropped lower, dangling just above the altar, his lifeless body now dressed in a mockery of vestments. A crimson stole draped across his broken shoulders. Blood dripped steadily onto the altar stone, pooling into a dark chalice that had not been there moments before. Ward dipped his hand into the blood, lifting it toward Eleanor and Daniel. "Drink and be bound to me. Refuse and hang." The congregation of corpses chanted louder. The walls shook. The confessional gaped wide, its shadow stretching across the floor like a tongue. Eleanor's mind reeled. There was no escape, no reasoning. Ward didn't want their souls cleansed. He wanted them chained to this place, part of his eternal mass. "Run," she hissed to Daniel. But the doors were gone, the windows bricked over. The church itself had sealed them in like a tomb. Ward advanced, the chalice in his skeletal hand. "Kneel." Eleanor's body shook, but she forced herself upright. "You damned them. You damned yourself. You are no priest. You are nothing but a monster." Ward's eyes blazed. With a snap of his fingers, the rope above jerked. James's body convulsed, his broken mouth splitting into a hideous grin as his voice, Ward's voice, spat the words, "Then hang." The noose swung downward, impossibly long, its end snaking across the floor toward Eleanor. She screamed, grabbing Daniel's arm. They stumbled back as the rope lashed like a serpent, striking at their throats. Daniel raised his crucifix, his voice breaking into prayer. "Deliver us, O Lord, from every evil." The church roared with laughter. The walls bled. The organ shrieked. The congregation of corpses wailed in mock prayer, drowning him out. Ward loomed closer, towering now, his shadow swallowing the altar. His voice cracked like thunder. "You are mine. All who enter are mine. This is the final mass, and it never ends." The noose lunged, the candles burst, and the church was plunged into absolute darkness. At dawn, the villagers of Ravensdale woke to stillness. No bells, no screams, No strangers returning from the hill. The innkeeper found the outsiders' room empty, their belongings still on the bed. The bed was damp, as though someone had left the window open in a storm. Margaret Whitfield, the old woman, sat by the fire and shook her head. The church has taken them, like all the others. No one spoke. No one dared look toward the hill, where St. Mary's towered in silence. But that night, when the mist rolled in and the village held its breath, the bell tolled again. 12 slow, hollow chimes. And if one stood very still, listening to the wind, they might hear the faintest murmur of voices. Eleanor Carter's sharp cry, James Miller's ragged scream, Daniel Harris's desperate prayers, mingling forever with the chant of Father Ward's eternal congregation. The final mass was still being sung, and would be until the end of time. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, AI Storytelling YTS, for more videos.